Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. My name's Justin.
And I'm Emily.
And you are watching That Christian Vlogger. We like to say that this is a place where you get to experience faith in the first person. And on today's video, we're going to be answering a question submitted by Gabe Lim 91, which basically says, since you are obviously Asian and she is Caucasian, were there any cultural or family traditions that made it difficult or challenging? Like how your parents play a role and or just a whole cultural merge?
First of all, I just want to say that we're millennials in that generation. And it's really interesting. I went to a Christian gathering with a lot of our same age group, millennials, and I met 8 new couples there that night, and every single couple was a different race, like a black girl and a Mexican guy, an Indian guy and a white girl. So just I think it's a lot more common in our generation to see that, and
which I think is great.
Yeah, which is really cool, and for people to be okay with that, which is awesome.
When I first started the channel back, about a year ago, I would get these kinds of comments all the time, like, "Hey, what do you think the Bible says about mixed marriages?" And I was just like, What do you mean? What does the Bible why is that even a question? It's what does the Bible say about the color blue? It's kind of I don't know. Is that really a thing?
Yeah.
But apparently, in a lot of parts of the country, for some people, that's a problem.
Yeah, and I think it's becoming more common in our generation is now too, because a lot of our generation is Americanized. They're been here for 3 generations already, so they're not they're very Americanized. So there's not too many cultural differences between races anymore.
Yeah. I don't know if we ever told you, but my dad is married to my stepmother, and obviously, my dad is Asian, and my stepmom is also white. Ironically, that's how it worked out for us too. But apparently, when they first got together, they were living in a part of Southern California where there's a ton of Chinese people. It's just like a little Chinatown almost. And what would happen is that they would go out to restaurants where there's authentic Chinese food, just all Chinese people, Asians everywhere. And what would happen was that when they would sit down in the restaurant, my stepmom would be the only white person in the room, and apparently even Chinese people can be racist to non-Chinese people at times. They're just giving her dirty looks and stuff like that. And so obviously it's much more of a generational thing. If you're under the age of, 25, the whole idea that mixed races, as far as being in a marriage, that's not really a problem. That's fairly standard, fairly
pretty
normal
nowadays.
Yeah, but that's not to say that even though that we are, obviously in a place where it's not a problem for us, that there aren't some challenges, right? There's some differences.
Yeah, we definitely grew up differently. Him in a Chinese Filipino household, me in a Caucasian household. His dad is kind of standard. Not your dad, but his grandmother's very standard. You have to get a degree. You can't do an entrepreneurial thing and do your own thing. Very strict on education. My family is that way too, but probably not as much. My brother didn't even go to college barely, and he's an entrepreneur. He has a great business now. So it's I think it was much more looked down upon in years. Your grandmother gave you a really hard time for.
Yeah. In fact, even my cousin Jackie still hasn't quite yet finished college, even though she's been working for years and years and years and years. And my grandmother still gives my cousin Jackie a difficult time. So yeah, there's definitely that. My culture tends to emphasize education very dogmatically and very unforgivingly. So that's one thing. But how would you say that you being white, me being Asian, impacts the way that you and I interact with each other?
Nothing at all.
Nothing.
No, really, it's no way at all.
In fact, if you guys would like to meet Emily's father, he's over here as we're videoing. He's over here working on the door. Say hi, Jim.
Hi, can I do it?
Yeah, do it.
So if you guys hear any sounds right now, he's fixing the door. Apparently the screws on the door fell off. Yeah, I don't know what happened there.
I don't know. What about you? Do you see any differences in our relationship that?
I would say the easiest thing that I could point to. Oh man, this framing is now all off. So that happens when I move the camera. After I got it all set up, I would say that the.
That's not the part.
It's only slightly distracting. Well, here's a really good example. Jim's a very hands-on, fix-it kind of a guy. He likes to fix everything in the house, and the cars and the doors and everything.
Very particular.
I don't know that my dad is quite like that as much. Certainly not to that level.
No, he helped build the house, I thought. Did all the flooring
no,
and
yeah,
stuff.
No, that's a really good point.
Yeah,
For
You're definitely not
over a year, maybe it was 2 years, we lived in a trailer because my dad wanted to renovate the house. And I think it doesn't come more from a sense of I want to fix things. I think my dad's just really cheap.
Yeah.
He didn't want to pay. He's like, I have two, perfectly healthy boys. Why am I going to pay someone else to do the work that they could be doing?
Yeah.
No, but what I was going to say is I would say a very easy thing to kind of point at as like a cultural difference is the food that we eat.
Yeah, it's very different.
Emily likes bread.
I grew up on potatoes, and bread. Those are the starches and the carbs I ate. Like, he grew up on white rice.
I grew up on rice. And so
I love potatoes in any form, and he likes rice in any form. So it's like...
And pretty much any time we have like a family thing with her family, I get teased at least half a dozen times like, oh, but there's no rice here. Are you going to be okay?
Yeah.
And it's like it's halfway a joke, and the other half is kind of serious because like, no, I do want rice. I would love it.
Oh, brother.
I mean, the types of difference we have mostly are really small, like those types of things.
Yeah. So another thing, the way we were raised as kids was very different. I think it has to stem from some cultural things. Like, I think it's pretty standard for like white parents to like very like helicoptery and just like, oh, we need to make sure Johnny is like taken well care of and has his lunch and like all these things, kind of like pampered almost in a way. And me being
spoiled.
Me being a girl and the youngest of four, I was definitely more that way. Like, oh, Emily, she gets everything handed to her on a silver platter.
Goodness.
Not that bad, but very different from how Justin, a male, the oldest out of 5, and Asian, was raised in his house. How were you raised?
I got a lot of spankings.
Yeah.
And I think that's a huge difference.
Yeah.
Like, you told me that you were, like, never spanked. Is that right?
I remember just once being spanked.
And if any of you guys are, like, the children of immigrants or the children of, like, people who, like non-Americans, I don't know. I don't think that any of you guys have ever had that experience. I mean, I got beat more times than I didn't get beat. It's how it felt, Just like, I mean, and granted, like, I was always a handful. I was always kind of picking on my brother or my sister, doing all kinds of stupid things. So I definitely deserved it many of the times. Mm-hmm. But I think the way that they handle discipline is really different. Like timeouts, like your nephews come over and they get timeout when they're in trouble. And I was like, what in the world is timeout? I never had timeout before. Like, I wish there was such a thing as timeout. I got beat, and then I got like privileges taken away for weeks and months.
Not like beat, like just like.
No, I got beat. My dad, especially. My dad won't deny these things. Like, he actually, I mean, because I was a handful, and he did the best that he could. And in certain areas, there was maybe a little bit of room for growth. But like, he would actually like.
Sorry. I just got a yawn all of a sudden. Keep going.
Okay. But like, he would actually like find physical things to hit me with. Like, I remember like I used to collect a lot of like martial arts toys and things like that because I was into martial arts. So I had like this toy sword from like Legoland that my dad would use to spank me with, and that thing really, really hurt. It was pretty painful.
Yeah.
So
So that's gonna, I think, really impact how we raise kids.
Totally.
We were raised so differently, and I'm just like, I don't want to beat them.
Yeah, but I don't know if that's so much a cultural difference as it is like a personality difference.
Like,
because we're so different.
I was very like quiet and shy, and I didn't get into too much trouble, but he was very spunky and. Yeah, so.
I think that's that's less of like a white to Asian difference as it is to maybe like a firstborn to the youngest difference.
That's true.
Because for me, my dad would always tell me, Justin, we made all of our mistakes on you. I was like, oh, great, thanks. That makes me feel super good, Dad. That's awesome.
Yeah.
But I see the way that my father treats my one of my younger sisters, who's, I don't know, what is this, 10 years in between the two of us, just about. And like, she never gets spanked, never does any of those things, partially because she's not like me in personality, but also because my dad over the years has learned a lot and has kind of softened his approach. And so that's why I say I think the difference is more so from like the firstborn to the lastborn, because there's a lot of growth and learning that takes place even in parents during that time.
Exactly. So. Yeah, Justin's actually the first non-white person to marry into
so true.
My extended family even. He has a lot more like different races married.
I'll put a photo, because just this last weekend we were in Washington and we had a family reunion with her family, and you'll notice in the picture that you're looking at right now, notice there's only one person that doesn't quite fit in the entire picture.
So Justin.
That would be me. So yeah, I'm the first non-white person to marry into this family, which isn't really a big issue at all, but it is. I mean, it is something. I mean, that does say something,
made history. Right? Yeah, more family.
Yeah.
It is kind of frustrating when I meet like non-Asian people and they don't really know how to pronounce my last name.
Yeah.
So I'm like,
but then even
Shu
Asian
with
people,
a K.
even Asian people mispronounce our name.
Yeah.
It's Ku, not Ko.
Yeah, but we also live in a very nice part of the U.S. Like the West Coast is a lot more liberal and like open, I think, to ethnicities. On the East Coast, it was a lot more segregated. Like blacks would live in this neck of the woods, white would live up here. So
all the Koreans were over here, and it was very much segregated.
So I feel like on the West Coast, it's a lot more like, oh, cool, like
especially in California.
Yeah,
like in California, like on one block, like there's the Indian family, there's the black family, there's the white family, there's the and all of these are even many times mixed. They're not even just like homogenous ethnic backgrounds.
Exactly.
So I think it's great. I think it's so awesome because every culture is different in its own way. Every kind of people group is different in their own way, and every single people group has something to bring to the table that is unique and is beautiful and is wonderful, and it reflects a great component of who God is.
Yeah, so I think it's a great thing to marry someone of a different race. It's cool to marry someone in a race, your same race too. Like there's not a difference between either for me. So yeah.
Okay, so we talked about how it can be challenging or difficult. Are there any ways that you think it's a blessing or a benefit?
Get to try
like what's a great thing that maybe the Asian culture brings that maybe you didn't have growing up?
Like cleanliness. Justin's family is very common in like Chinese, even Filipino cultures to be like really clean, like take a shower twice a day. So
maybe that's Asian. I don't know. All you Asians out there, is that normal? Because my dad was crazy, completely like bonkers over this kind of thing. I would stay at home like it's a day off from school.
Yeah.
And then I didn't get out of my pajamas. I was just like hanging out on the couch, watching TV or playing video games or something like that. And before I go to bed, my dad says, you have to take a shower because you're dirty. So that's weird. The way that it is that you are neat but not clean, and I'm clean but not neat.
Yeah, like tidiness wise. So
she loves organizing everything, and I throw everything on the floor, but I don't touch things that are dirty, or I always am showering and all that kind of stuff. So maybe that's the difference. So you think that's a good thing that you're more clean now?
Yeah, I think it's good because I don't really recognize, oh man, I was out all day and I kind of got sweaty, and Justin's like, oh, we should probably take a shower. We're going to an airport all day traveling. I'm like, oh yeah, good idea,
Totally.
Yeah, so what about you?
A way that the white culture has been a blessing to me.
White. Sorry.
I'm trying to think.
I'm not red-skinned.
You're not Esau.
I'm not Esau. There was a comment that said I look like Esau.
In the last video, Emily made a comment that, it's because I'm so white or whatever. And then someone in the comment section, you know who you are, said that Emily's not white, she's red. And then quoted the verse about Esau being hairy and red. I have no clue what that has to do with anything.
I'm hairy and red.
You just had a haircut, so you're not as hairy anymore.
Yeah, right? Oh my goodness. Interesting. Anyway.
So one thing that I definitely have taken from your family, and especially living with your family and seeing them all interact, one major thing that I take away a lot is the value of doing like family meals. So you see this a lot on TV. A lot of the white culture, like they have like the proper, like they put out all the nice dishes. They got the 3 forks and then the spoons and then the knife, and they've got all these things. Like it's like this whole production just for like an afternoon meal. And that's kind of what it's like here. Not every day, but certainly when there's family over.
Down together.
Yeah, normal meals.
Yeah.
Whereas in my family, we were always on the go. You're doing all kinds of different activities, or really even when we do it, it's just kind of like, hey, there's the food on the counter, go grab some food. And so we didn't really have a very dedicated sit-down meal time, not consistently at least. And so for me, I think that's really, really great because that's when you get to really just kind of digest the day, and you get to talk to each other and just kind of hang out.
Phones free.
Yeah, no phones, all that kind of stuff. So I think that's definitely something that I would like to take into our family and continue to do.
Yeah, and you can do this with marrying within your race too. Like you're raised a certain way, and you have qualities that you like how you're raised, and the other person does too, and you kind of get to combine those into your family and make your own traditions. So
Absolutely.
It's really cool.
So, yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Anyways. So.
Cool. Well, hopefully that answered your question. Thank you guys so much for hanging out with us on today's Veda, and we will see you guys tomorrow. But
until next time, we're That Christian Blogger, and we encourage you to have faith in the first person. God bless. Okay. Bye.
We'll see you guys.